It's Friday, December 29th, 2023. Gone back to Skype because Skype appears to be okay. We will continue working on our FaceTime backup solution, but for the moment, the horrific audio problems that were there right from the start do not appear to be present, so I am not as concerned this time. Of course, you never know. Last show of the year, it could all crash and burn, but before it does, I will start off with our shill segment by saying go to patreon.com/Ozone Nightmare if you would like to support the show. You can also go to the show's homepage, and on the right side of your screen, you will see an array of squarish, rounded shapes. Each of those shapes contains an image, a pictograph, if you will, indicating what clicking on the square will do for you. The one with the PayPal logo will take you to the PayPal donation portal, if you prefer using that platform to support us. You will see one that looks like a book with a bookmark that will take you to Lando's Amazon author page. There is one that looks like a skull that will take you to the link tree for my art links, and you also see one, I believe there is one for the Zazzle store, but I don't know if anybody cares, so I never even think about mentioning it. And at the bottom, I believe, is one with a YouTube logo, and that will take you to our YouTube channel where our Baldur's Gate 3 videos are going up, as well as my art streams and little other fun things. And as far as I am aware, the code OZONE, or for those outside the United States, OZONE, will get you 2 months free to podcast on the Libsyn platform that we have been on for a very, very long time.
Did you record?
Also, happy holidays.
Did you record the gay romance sequence in that we played in Breakpoint last night? About the bagel?
No, I did not.
Oh my God.
I did not.
You know,
yeah. I haven't been recording Breakpoint because that's just been purely fun.
You had me laughing so hard about that, and then it stuck with me to the point of which that I remember it the next day. Sometimes we talk a lot of shit while we're playing video games, and like, you know, it's just kind of, it's shit. You know, it just kind of washes over. You laugh and you forget about it. But sometimes there's you know, we get into these jokes that you that stay with me, and the whole thing about the two programmers,
Eugene Levy and the Spectrum guy,
being in a like lurid gay romance with bagels is that one stays with me.
Oh, I forgot about the bagel part.
Yes, that's the bagel part. Stayed with me. Yeah. Let's not even talk about what he's going to do with the locks. Yeah.
That, by the way, goes back. I don't know. I think this is where it came from in my head, because sometimes I just kind of spout stuff. But I believe that's because in Schitt's Creek, which Eugene Levy is one of the stars of, there is a episode, I don't know if you made it this far, where he is renting a space to work. And the guy he's renting it from, his only knowledge about Jewish individuals is that they know about bagels.
Yeah, I got that far, yeah.
And
so I think it's the garage, isn't it, when he's renting space in the garage?
Yes. And so that's where I think my brain pulled the bagel thing from, is because he looked like Eugene Levy. And, of course, there was that funny bit about, Jews know about bagels, right? Which is, you know, it's a very good-natured kind of joke. The way it's done in the show, it's not derogatory in any way. But I think that's where I came up with the idea of sexualizing bagels, because the character looked like Eugene Levy. So, but no, I did not record it. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, it's very funny.
Probably
you know what? It's probably best.
Oh, no, it's funny. But the thing is, I'm really trying to, I try to record now when there are missions, so that they
Okay.
don't just become 2-hour videos. That way there's something that you actually...
I
know-
always worry sometimes because sometimes I forget that you're recording, and that's when I worry like that one of us is gonna one of us
Oh,
is
no,
gonna
no,
make
no,
a
no, no,
joke.
no. Okay, let me tell you something. If there was
Yeah.
at the times where things have been said where I had even the smallest concern, I stopped the recording dead in the middle, and then I know, and I immediately delete it in the background so I won't forget. So I
Got
I have
it.
a very good system about if you mention something like about your kids or something. I'm
Oh
like,
yeah, family.
you know,
Yeah. But
yeah,
but every now
immediately
and then,
stop and delete.
because I know that the two of us have a tendency to be able to like push each other kind of like
Sure.
closer and closer to the line. You know, it's like
Yeah.
the whole game of like how close can you get to the line without necessarily completely crossing it.
I was having a discussion with somebody about this the other day because they were talking about, you know, what are the things, you know, where are your red lines as far as in, you know, and I was saying, well, look, I said I'm generally I don't have many where I say, okay, no, you know, you can't joke about that or whatever. I said there's very few instances where there are things where I'm like, no, that's really, you've gone too far. For example, they were saying, you know, about what was it? Something like memeing certain people and, you know, or using certain people's images. And I said, well, I'll give you an example. I said, you know, if somebody says that they like Elon Musk, I that's not a reason for me. Let's say I was still on Twitter, which I technically am, but I'm really not active there. If somebody mentions that they support Elon Musk, I don't block them just for that. Some people do. Some people that's they won't even look at those people's posts. I'm not going to do that because, you know, whatever. I don't care that much. Elon Musk is a doofus and an idiot, but I don't know that he's as malevolently toxic as, say, Alex Jones, who if somebody says anything where they're like, oh, maybe Alex Jones, block. No, sorry. Somebody who's telling people that their kids didn't die in a shooting, no, I'm done with you. No, there is no playing around with that guy for me. That is a one and done. You don't mention anything about him, and I'm going to look at anything else you have to say. You are immediately off the planet for me.
Whereas, like, I don't have social media, so I don't have that sort of blockage. But I do know that if I'm talking to somebody, right, and they mention, if they mention that they're a longtime listener of Alex Jones, it's a red flag, right? But if someone's a longtime listener of, who's the other guy? The Fear Factor guy.
Oh, Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan, right? Joe Rogan is not always an idiot. And Joe Rogan's show can sometimes be entertaining. But the thing is, like, because I have as little contact with Joe Rogan as I do, when I look at Joe Rogan, my brain goes, Joe Rogan, you mean the guy from Fear Factor? Who is, and beyond Fear Factor, I think of Joe Rogan as a comedian. Because the only other long-term interaction I had with his material was watching his stand-ups, which my wife hates, by the way. Which I actually thought his stand-ups could be quite funny, especially his whole thing about, you know, if the world came to an end outside this theater, how would any of us know how to do anything? And there was the whole thing about the microphone. Like, I don't know what it does.
I will say this weird thing about Joe Rogan, who I have basically no interest in anymore either.
Yeah.
But most, unlike, say, Elon Musk or Alex Jones, as good examples, most of the people who like him generally, not, there are, of course, nuts like there are for anything else, but I don't hear a lot of the people who are fans of his that I see interactions with.
There are a lot of the problem with Joe Rogan, there's a lot of fitness people who listen to him.
Well, I was going to say, a lot of them don't view him as a messiah. They just like the fact that he doesn't care.
Yeah, there's a lot of fitness people, and then he kind of, because they're listening to him about like a lot of fitness stuff and UFC stuff, then it kind of creeps into other shit, you know, and that's where he gets dangerous. But the thing is, I never, like, for years, I didn't know that he had anything to do with the UFC. Like, I always thought
I've heard clips, and multiple times I know his name.
And
I know his voice. So when I hear
UFC
stuff, he knocked him out. I'm like, oh, that's Joe Rogan. I know.
Yeah, the UFC stuff came afterwards for me. Like, I knew him from comedy, and I knew him from Fear Factor. So, like, now that he's got his own show, I look at him, and because in my head I look at him, I'm like, yeah, you're a comedian, you're a TV presenter. It's like, no, you're not someone that I'm going to for my information. You're going for someone that I'm, you know, it's like I would no more take information of importance from Joe Rogan than I would from, like, Letterman. You guys are interviewers. Sure. You interview people that might be entertaining. This is entertainment. And that's where I put it.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, but the
and
thing is,
and that's the difference is where
people, yeah, exactly. People
think Elon Musk is the savior of humanity, and Alex Jones is, he's revealing the truth of the deep state, man. He knows it. No, he doesn't. Stop it. He's an idiot.
No, he's making money.
As for
Elon Musk, you know, after watching the John Oliver kind of thing on him.
Yeah.
Now, again, John Oliver, again, a TV presenter, who has put himself in a very weird position where he's basically become like a comedic deep dive news reporter, which is I don't think that's really what he wanted to be in the end. But I mean, he was a comedian.
Well, I think people transferred the Daily Show onto him because he was known as the anti-Daily Show, and so they went the opposite way. And I agree. I don't think he really wants to be at. The other thing is he's good at it. That's the other problem. He tends to be good at it.
Yeah, and he's very good at fucking with people, which is what I really like about that.
Yeah.
But his whole thing about Elon Musk, I thought it was a very interesting kind of perspective, which is to say he's not as stupid as you think he is. He's more dangerous than you think he is because he has access to all these large military infrastructure contracts. So I will not ignore Elon Musk because I think it's dangerous to ignore somebody who has that kind of access. Yeah. But I also don't think that he's some kind of genius. And that was one of the things actually that did bother me from the John Oliver expose, which is that sometimes they talk about these companies and they talk about these companies like Elon Musk did that. And I'm kind of sitting there going, no. Elon Musk
he did
not do that. He was there yelling at people and he had brilliant scientists do that.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's the thing is you have to remember the mistake people make is that they're still personifying companies into an individual. Whereas, listen, if Elon Musk had a ship full of monkeys, he's not getting very far. You know, he has the money to hire brilliant people and then treat them like shit until he gets what he wants.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, there are brilliant people in his companies. So,
sure, of course. Yeah.
You know, so it's like I'd like the credit to go beyond him. You know.
Yes.
Because what is his degree? Is he an engineer? Does he have like an electrical engineering degree or something like that? Or am I going to find out that it's like hold on. Now I need.
I'm looking. I don't think he has any kind of anything. I think he's just rich. I don't think he has any type of
formal education.
Here we go.
Bachelor's degree in physics and economics.
Really?
Yeah. University of Pennsylvania. He received a bachelor's degree in physics and economics.
Oh, bachelor's degree. Okay.
Yeah. So he's got a bachelor's degree in physics and economics. Okay. He has a background.
So he knows slightly more than I do. Okay. Okay.
Well, in the realm of physics and economics, he probably knows quite a bit more than you.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you did illustration.
I don't know if I believe that because I don't know that he didn't buy those degrees. Let's not forget where he comes from and what he's done.
And that's the fear with when the second you've got very heavily moneyed individuals is
you know what? Okay.
Yeah.
Does Elon Musk here? I'm gonna pose a question just generally.
Yeah. Go for it.
Is Elon Musk a good engineer? Let's see if anybody says. Let's see.
He's not an engineer at all.
Oh, interesting. There's an engineers Reddit where somebody said, "I'm curious what you guys think about whether Elon Musk is an engineer." Let's see here. Okay, I'm just looking to see what people who are engineers think. Depends what you define engineering as. If you only consider the legal definition, can he call himself an engineer on paperwork based on a bonded license from the state? Then no, he is not an engineer. But engineering can go beyond that. Okay, so this person is making an argument that it's not a very simple answer, which is fine. I don't have any problem with that. Physics graduates work as engineers all the time. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. So it's not a yes or no answer.
At the end of the day, I mean, engineering is to some degree the act of figuring out the design and how something goes together. You know, there's lots of engineer projects that require engineering that it's kind of saying that no one can talk you through your problems unless they're a psychologist. You know what I mean? Like having a psycholist might help, but anyone talking to you about your problems will help. And the same as if you have a problem where you need to figure something out, a non-engineer can figure out the problem. An
Well,
engineer has more training.
Yeah, depending on how you're looking.
Like
if
you're building a bridge, listen, you and I could build.
What'd
a
you
bridge.
say his things were? Physics and what? What was the other
Physics and economics.
Okay, so then, all right, so then,
Yeah, you and I could build a bridge, but at the end of the day, you'd rather have with proper materials. Joe and I can get you across a river, probably.
Yeah.
But an engineer will make it so that you can get back.
So in terms of engineering, my original statement was correct. He doesn't really know any more than I do in any certified way, or any.
Yeah. But I mean, honestly,
demonstrable way.
by now he probably does because he's been around it for long enough.
So what those degrees
Hopefully.
actually make a lot of sense to me, because that tells me that what he knew enough was to say, okay, this is the thing that I want to accomplish, and this is the way to build a business to accomplish it, because physics would give you the understanding of, okay,
Of the science.
I know how to get to space, right?
Yeah.
I know what the physics are to get something. I know how hard it is to get an object into space. Got it. And then the economics is, okay, how can I make it viable to have a reusable return vehicle? Okay, now I'm going to hire people who actually know what they're doing.
Again, get the geniuses, yeah.
Yeah. So that's that makes sense. That makes sense.
So, yeah.
But I agree. That's the thing is it is absolutely, I think, accurate to say that Musk has been outside of all of his recent and personal stuff, he has been he was, I should say it this way.
Well, he was.
He
yeah,
was a very positive force in terms of environmental benefit, because he got the electric car market moving, where it kept stalling, and he got Tesla, for all its quality and control issues, did get people excited about it. It energized the space.
They're still. Hey, listen, they're still on the road.
Yeah, and they still sell fairly well. So would other car makers, which had already tried electric and given up on it, still be doing it?
You know when I knew that Musk had succeeded with the Tesla? When our friend Snedeker contemplated buying one. And he's like, when it comes to cars and everything, he's usually the most down-to-earth, like grounded person you can talk to about purchasing and owning a vehicle. Like he owned his first car that he bought till it was like dead. And like I think he's only owned 3 cars in his whole life, right? Did tons of research on them, right? And at one point, he was like, "I'm contemplating getting a Tesla," and I was like, "Really?" And then he like gave me his shtick, and like it made sense within his thing, and I was like, "Oh, you know what? Tesla has created this product to such a point that my audio engineer friend, who's very grounded, trusts it." And I was like, you know what? I was like, that's some kind of win, because I still won't buy a Tesla.
No, I wouldn't even come close to one.
Yeah.
Not even because of Musk. It has nothing to do with him. I don't want to drive that type of car.
I don't want to drive that type of car either. I don't like
I don't want a giant touchscreen car. I'm sorry, I don't want it.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, my biggest issue now with cars in general is I like range. I need range because the thing is I like to drive a lot. And I don't always have that much time to sit and charge, and I don't always, especially where I used to live. It's different now because I'm in Jersey, but when I was in Vermont, there weren't that many like high speed charge stations. Like I'd have to drive into town to get my car charged. You know what I mean? Plus temperature fluctuations affects battery performance. My battery. I do drive a hybrid, but my battery usage would plummet in the winter.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm at this point now where I'm starting to get less and less interested in. I'm kind of tired of the technology being so smart. Doesn't that sound terrible?
No. No.
After reading that article, about reading that article about all the stuff they're trying to do in the cars, and they're going to they want cars now to like rat you out on every piece of information and all this stuff, and I'm like, for me, the privacy of your car was important. There's a lot of sexual acts that used to happen in cars. There's a lot of illicit acts that used to happen in cars. There's a lot of, there's a lot of private acts that happen in a car.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And
they've said accelerometers track that.
Yeah.
They are keeping an eye on that stuff.
Like when yeah. I'm not gonna get all the fucked up shit I've done in a vehicle, but either way. So the idea that my car is no longer a kind of holy place of privacy, it bothers me. And I told my wife, I was like, at some point in the future, I was like, don't be surprised if I turn around and I say to you, hey, you know what? I'm gonna get one of these. Oh God, what are those? Those old trucks. They look like a, what do you call it? They look like almost like a powerhouse truck. What's his name? Bill Burr has one. Which is so funny because he was mentioning that. No. It's like an old style truck. I don't know trucks. I don't know trucks. Hold on, I'll tell you. He has one of these, and then when I found out,
a car from like the '70s, and you'll be fine.
Well, that's what this is basically is. It's hold on. Yeah, like these like the old style F100. Oh, maybe I can. Oh, you know, I just realized we're on Skype. I can actually send you links. There you go. Because before we couldn't. So let's see if this works. Think like the Christine of trucks. You know what I mean? Like, where the fuck did my Skype go?
You're not talking about an El Camino, are you?
No, not an El Camino. No. I'll show you.
I don't know. Like I said, I hate El Caminos, but I know what they are.
Yeah, like one of these things.
Let's see. What is this?
You know, like an older, like...
Yeah, okay. Oh, 50s.
Yeah, an old...
Like 50s, 60s.
Yeah, an older 50s, 60s truck, you know, and then you basically you update the interior and you make sure the engine's stable, and then it's like you got your truck, you got your private place. Now, I don't necessarily need a truck. Honestly, what I really want is a fucking, you know, minivan. But they didn't really... When did they start making minivans?
When did they? Ooh, that's a good question.
I don't think they really started making them so they were worth a damn until like because I think it was station wagon. Get one of those old station wagons with the wood trim on the side, like one of those like fucking cruisers. Things are crazy. Anyway, yes, the privacy of your vehicle that does bother me, and I realize as I get older, like
no, what is that car? Hold on.
Is it the Batmobile? Are you gonna send me the Batmobile?
No. Well, I mean the Batmobile, but I think it's the Oldsmobile Vista Cruiser. Look that up.
Ooh, hold on.
That is a car I could see you driving.
The Vista Cruiser.
The Oldsmobile Vista Cruiser. Look that thing up.
Vista, is that Cruiser with a Z or Cruiser just Cruiser?
No, Vista, the traditional spelling.
Oh man, look at that!
Look at that, huh?
Yeah, I would totally drive that.
I know you would. Yeah.
Yeah, like I have no... You know, there was a point in my life where I was like, oh my God, I need to drive a cool car. I want like a muscle car. And then I hit this point where like I had kids and I just realized I didn't give a shit. I just wanted a car to go wherever I wanted. I want a car that if I feel like sleeping in it, I can comfortably.
I never had that moment, believe it or not, because the coolest cars I ever thought existed, I knew I could never fit in. So it destroyed any.
Oh yeah, and that. Yeah. Oh no, see, I got over that at a young age because in high school, I had a girlfriend in high school whose dad was a pharmaceutical rep, and he had this really expensive sports car. I didn't even know about it because it was hiding in their shed under a tarp, right? Whereas when I say like I wanted a cool car, I wanted like a Roadrunner, or like, you know, when they came out with the new Chargers, I wanted a new Charger. You know what I mean? Like I wanted one of those. Like those are the kinds of cars I liked. I wanted like an SRT8 Hellcat or something like that. Sure. You know what I mean? But yeah, her dad had this really nice sports car, and when we graduated, she asked if she could drive it. Basically, I don't even know where. I think we drove it to the graduation. And her dad was like, yeah, go ahead, you can drive the car. And I remember we got into it. And it was a really beautiful car. Like, beautiful sports car. I don't even remember at this point what it was. I just remember that when we got in, I felt like I was lying on the floor. And I thought to myself, this is the most uncomfortable driving position. It's like you're practically just like laying on the ground, slightly lifted up so you can like see the steering wheel. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
And I was like, you would die in a car accident in this thing. And I just realized that for me, the ultimate driving position is just sitting up like I'm on like I'm sitting at the dining room table. That's the position I want to be in when I'm driving. I want to be in yeah, that's what I prefer. So no, I was over that at a young age. And like I love watching Top Gear, like old Top Gear, and like seeing all the cool sports cars and all the shit they do, but I have zero interest in those. Yeah, it's so funny because it's like, yeah, they're really cool cars and the Batmobile and yada yada, but like, you know, yeah, they're not they're not fun to take long car trips in.
No.
You know, and if there's a rock in the road, you feel that in your spinal column. No.
Right.
No, I like stout cars. And I'm coming to realize I like cars that don't talk shit on you. I can't tell you how often I fight with the smart features in my car. You know, your car's like, you're going to hit something. I'm like, I'm not going to hit something. And then it kicks off my gas. I have this all the time where
you could disable most of those, can't you?
I need to go into the features and disable it. I had this thing where basically I'm trying to
Yeah.
pull out of the parking lot for my daughter's school, and there's a lot of cars flying through. And to get out, you basically have to start going as the car in front of you is passing, and then you can get out really quick. My car goes, no, you're going to hit something, and
Don't
cuts
do
my
that.
gas. Yeah, it cuts my gas. So then there I am, just rolling out into traffic, about to be hit by incoming cars. And I'm like, you fucker, you know, like I have this thing now where I yell at my car. I do it in front of the kids sometimes where I'm like, do that again, and I'm going to send you back to your overseers in like a box, you know. And my daughter's always like, who are the overseers? My wife laughs. She's like, oh man, she's like, you read that article about how your car is ratting you out and you just don't trust it now. And I'm like, I don't like all the mommy features. And I acknowledge that there are people who need those features. I have used those features before when I have been when I haven't felt well and I had to get someplace, right? But I know that once they put these technologies in your car, they will not really give you a way to fully pull them out. You know, so like once they can spy on you, they will always spy on you.
Well, yes, of course. Well, that's why a lot of these car makers are ditching CarPlay and Android Auto, because they want you to use their solution, not only so you have to pay for it, but because then they get all the data.
Yeah, exactly, and it's theirs to do what they want. Yeah. No, I like this. I like this Oldsmobile Vista Cruiser.
So there you go.
Yeah, that's nice. I mean, the biggest
I
problem
thought
with these
that would
cars
appeal to
is,
you.
yeah, well, you know, my dream car is still the fucking the Mercury, the Cobra car.
Oh, of
Stallone
course.
Cobra car. Oh,
Yeah.
God. Yeah. The problem with
Great
those
car.
things is they're beautiful cars, but I did get to drive a 1957 Oldsmobile at one point, and that was like maneuvering a boat.
Well, that's it with the 70s Corvettes too.
Yeah,
is they are miserable to drive.
Yeah, there was no power steering. All right, so like I was
Oh
muscling
yeah,
the
there's
car.
that. Yeah.
And,
So I mean, it'd be good to
yeah.
keep your arms in shape. I'll say that.
oh yeah, but I mean, you know,
you top shape.
that's not a car you want to drive into your old age.
You don't want to have to make a quick
Oh,
maneuver in
geez.
it. Let's put it that way.
Man, you know what I saw the other day? I saw a Jaguar E-Type
Oh really?
parked on the side of the road. There was like a crowd forming. I drove by it, and it was this
Well,
beautiful.
I would think.
It was this beautiful hunter green, and I was like, "Damn, that is a good-looking car." I mean, it looks like it's sized for a child, but it's a good-looking car.
Oh, it's design-wise, it's a beautiful car.
It's a beautiful car, yeah.
I would not want to own one because every time I had to go anywhere, I'd be panicked that I'd come out and it'd be gone.
We'll be gone, and if anything breaks, I mean that's the other thing. I mean, I've
Well,
joked
sure.
about this before. The
Of
windshield wiper test, where it's like if your
Oh,
windshield
yeah.
wiper breaks, how much does it cost to replace that?
Well, that's the thing about any high-end car, and that's where people are. I mean, although, as my wife has taught me, the reality is many of these cars, they have a cheap analog because many of them are made by manufacturers who also make normal cars. So if you're just smart and don't go to a dealer, you don't have to pay all that. But most people are like, oh, well, I bought a Mercedes and I'm going to have it serviced at a Mercedes because that's the only people I trust. Okay, well, then pay 4 times what the part's worth. Go for it.
Yeah, then you have to find a mechanic, and that doesn't always work either.
Well, no. And at some point, they'll make it
Like,
where mechanics won't be able to work on these cars. Without a doubt.
Well,
that will happen.
they're already doing that, yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean in totality. You will not be able to you won't be able to change a tire without having it at a dealership. That's coming.
Yeah.
Right now, they're just locking out certain systems. But eventually, yeah, I mean, that's another reason why I don't, that the Tesla future
Well,
is
they
no good
started,
to me is
I
because,
think they started dabbling that. I think when they did the, there's a lock you can get. It's like a nut lock on your tires.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right? I think that technology will eventually be used where they'll be like, well, if you don't have our special copyright, wrench, you can't unlock these tires. You know what I mean?
Well, a lot of them now are the car code things where your car will have a code and you can't clear it unless you go to a dealership.
Oh, God, I had that.
You
I
can't
had
just
that
plug
happen
in
to me.
an over-the-counter type thing to it. It will not clear it. It can't fix it.
Yes. Yeah, and this is
and what they'll do, by the way, is
Yeah.
they'll tie it to the warranty. They'll say, "Oh no, you can go to somebody else, but
you break the warranty. Yeah.
now your warranty's invalid because
And
we
this is
can't
what
certify that guy knows what he's doing."
What I always think is funny about like a lot of sci-fi you read, like I do like sci-fi that thinks about this stuff and like kind of and shows you like the weird absurdity of it, like how it could evolve into the future. But like when you watch like Star Wars is funny. Star Wars is more fantasy than, and this is not a seg because I have other things to talk about. But Star Wars is funny because they have this vision of like a future, but it really is a long, long time ago because, you know, there is lots of technology, but if you really think about it, right, there's no infrastructure. Like even on, what was the core planet? Is it Corsican where the Senate was? Before? Coruscant, right? Do you pay taxes? Do Jedis pay taxes? Are there you know plans for people when they get older? Is there Social Security? Is there health care? What happens when Jedis get sick? Like
how much does the Empire tax me? Somebody asked on Reddit.
No. Yeah.
I'm an average Imperial citizen who earns a mid-range salary on Coruscant. Does the Empire have a tax structure similar to ours? Is it progressive? Is it separated by municipal, county, state, federal, country, planet, solar system, quadrant? I just have so many questions.
Species, like, you know, because what if you're some, you know, what if you're some species?
This is great. Somebody says, I doubt they tax you at all. They just take all your planet's resources and then you're on your own.
Yeah. So I do find that funny. That's one of the things in sci-fi they always forget, which is like the human capacity to try to suck every last dollar out of each other. You know what I mean? But anyway, we should probably get into our reviews because I just realized that how the fuck far are we already?
Apparently this question was directly referenced in the very first movie, A New Hope. In one of the deleted scenes, which I remember watching, but I don't remember this particular quote.
In a deleted scene. Okay.
Well, but no, but it was filmed. They just cut it but it was there. Okay. So, and I remember I've watched this scene. It's when he's talking to Biggs
or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Biggs says, quote, "What good's all your uncle's work if the Empire takes it over? You know they've already started to nationalize commerce in the central systems. It won't be long before your uncle's just a tenant slaving for the greater glory of the Empire." So there is no taxing. They own it all.
Yeah.
So there you go.
I mean, and what's funny is that the prequels are literally about like groups that don't want to be represented by the separatists who want, you know, who are separating over like, I can't remember.
I think it is, but, you know, commercial shipping lanes or some garbage.
Yeah, it's shipping lane. Yeah, something like that. Yes. Anyway, so we should review things. We should talk about other things.
Yeah, let's talk about Star Wars. We never talked about that before.
Well, I have some.
Technically, I guess we will be talking about Star Wars through a warped lens later. So yeah, we will get back to Star Wars. But go on.
All right. So the last time we did the show, where the show was totally falling apart.
I don't know.
It's weird to do this show. It's weird to do this show now.
My editing was seamless.
I have been. I finally got COVID.
Which you've been waiting for all these years, and finally you got it.
Right after we recorded. I'm pretty sure it was like the next day, wasn't it? I think it was the next day.
Well, okay, wait, because you felt bad on a
Monday. It was Monday, yeah.
A Monday, so it was the day after.
Yeah, we didn't play games because I was like, I think I'm coming down with something.
That's right.
Yeah, I got COVID after we did the show. So like, I've had like this very weird week. I was in quarantine for my family for half of it, and then other people started getting sick, and so there's been kind of a weird mindset. So it's funny because I think the review I would have given you of this book a week ago is different because it feels like several weeks since we recorded the last show. Like no shit. And I am terrible in quarantine. I've come to realize I should not be left to my own devices for days on end. And it was so funny because my wife is like, she's like, yeah, but like you used to be like a total isolationist. She's like, you used to be on your own for like, weeks. And your response to that was like, yeah, but that was like 20 years ago. It's like, like people change. And you're like, yeah, you're right. People change. Yeah. So I was not happy with being isolated, and it took my mind to a lot of weird places. But yes, my review of this book is going to be somewhat, I think, different than it would have been. But it's better. But I think it's better because I've had to kind of let it breathe. So I've read this graphic novel. It is a image book called Echolands. I don't know who's the main author. Is it J.M. Williams III? It's J.M. Williams. All right, so this book is the first volume, and it's important that I tell you that because it does end on a bit of a, I don't know if it's a cliffhanger, but like it ends, it's the first volume of a larger story. So, this isn't a complete story, right? And this is specifically for you, Joe, because I know that you don't want to read something until you get a sense of all of it. But it's actually really good that we're doing this book because this book is going to very much mirror the movie we're going to review later in the show. So this book, Echolands, is set up in a very weird way. There's no real explanation for why it's set up the way it is, but it's a world where all sorts of, I guess they don't think they're fictional, but basically all these different fictional sort of mythos have ended up in kind of this joint reality. You know what I mean? So you've got the main character is kind of like a version of Little Red Riding Hood. You've got mobsters. You've got characters. Who's the guy who did Thor, who did like classic Thor in that very specific style?
Like Simonson?
You've got Simonson style. Yeah, you got Simonson style characters. You've got, vampires that look like something out of like a, Dark Horse comic. You've got all this shit. And what they did was all these different characters and their worlds are drawn specifically like that style from where it comes from, right? So when you're reading the book, you'll be in a scene and you'll have 5 different types of characters from 5 different kind of mythologies who are all drawn in the original style of their art. So like the Red Riding Hood character, she looks very much like a modern Image comic, but then she's standing next to this guy who looks like Flat Top from a Dick Tracy comic strip, and he looks like he is drawn like a comic strip, right? Then you've got another guy who's kind of like he's kind of like a version of Thor, not like Thor, but he's kind of a version of that kind of God's character, and he's drawn like Walter Simonson. Like he looks, is it Simonson? Who's the other guy who did it too? Wasn't there another guy who did it? No, maybe it is Simonson.
Simonson
or Kirby.
was
Kirby.
Well,
was
okay,
it Kirby?
I was going to say Simonson is basically
gods?
That's Kirby. I was going to say
so
Simonson is basically Frog Thor era, and then Kirby was New Gods. I
think
and
this is
more early foundational Marvel stuff.
Yeah, I think this is Kirby. It's a very Kirby style. This guy.
Kirby was the cosmic galactic guy.
Yeah.
Into that.
So these characters are drawn. Everyone who's connected to this character and kind of his world is drawn like that. So the story for this book is essentially very simple, is that Red Riding Hood is from some other world. She's ended up in this kind of joint space where all these worlds kind of intersect on this planet. Everyone is kind of living together. There's you remember in the comic book Top 10, how you had all these different worlds kind of in one city?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's a very strong Top 10 vibe to this, except Top 10 made everything kind of look the same, whereas in this book, everything has maintained the sanctity of the comic book that it came from, right? And they're all living in this city, and the character of Red steals a gem from a wizard. And the wizard is very pissed off about this, and she takes the gem back to her group of thieves, at which point they realize they have stolen something that they are not going to be allowed to get away with. And so the wizard sends his quote-unquote daughter, which is really a killing machine that he built, and she proceeds to pursue Red and her merry band of thieves, who are not very happy that Red has done this, through this world. And they're trying to escape. And as they go, they bring destruction everywhere they go. And they meet all these different people and go to all these different worlds. And then as it goes on, they're beginning to get this sense that their story has been foretold and that they have kind of entered into a state of fate where there's more going on than they realize. And it really kind of culminates at one point in the book where they meet an alien, like a classic big-eyed gray alien who's living in some kind of underwater like temple, and he has collected all these weird things, and he's kind of all-seeing. He knows all this stuff, and their coming to him is foretold, and so he's helping them because he's helping fate move along. And they're kind of like, well, how could how could it be foretold, But he's like, well, you guys are part of something bigger now. He's like, maybe you always were. He's like, you just didn't realize it. And so there's kind of that weird aspect of fate to the story. But it's just, the story itself is okay. Visually, for someone who loves comics like I do, and for someone who likes art, it is so much fun to look at. Like, I kind of rushed through it to review it for the last show, and then when we didn't review it, I kind of looked through it, and I went through the whole book and didn't even read it the second time. The second time, I just followed the visual storytelling of it, and it is really gorgeous what these artists have done, trying to create different styles in the same frame after frame. Where you're just you've got this vampire, and she's drawn in this very sort of, like I said, like dark horse, kind of like simplified, drained of color, so she's practically black and white. But then she's next to this very modern Image comic version of Red Riding Hood with a bright red cape and very detailed. And then you've got the Dick Tracy style art next to that, and the Simonson art, and it's just very cool the way it's all mixed together. And they're a very kind of interesting and very different group of characters. I mean, she's got essentially a barbarian in the group who's this giant barbarian. She's got a vampire queen who's been deposed. She's got some kind of elf who's being upgraded with bionic parts to keep going. So it's like a bionic elf. She's got this. She's essentially got Flat Top from Dick Tracy, like I said, and then and then at some point or another, you have a very Walter Simonson Thor style, but like a pirate Thor style character show up. You've got a Frankenstein style character. It's just so beautiful, and I immediately wanted to read the next volume, which is not out. And I feel bad because I read this thing the other day where they were talking about how we've become so used to just being able to consume media at a high speed that, you don't realize that some of these things still take years to produce, and then they give it to you and you're like, yum, 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 you eat it all up. Now I want the next volume, and it's like, fucker, that took years to make, and you just, you just sucked it all down in like an hour, So I'm trying not to be like that, but I immediately wanted to read the next one and see like where they went, what other artists what other art styles they wanted to pull in. I don't know if you can find any images of it.
Oh yeah, I've been looking at it. Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? Like they have all these different styles just like walking right there next to each other.
Is this all the same artist doing it?
So looking at the table of contents, I think there's like 3 artists who.
Okay, I was going to say, because if one person is doing
it's
all of
amazing,
this,
right? That would be amazing.
That would be very, very. I mean, you could do it.
So
somebody could do it, but that's not easy.
Okay, so yes, it is one guy doing the art, by the way.
That's amazing.
J.H. Williams III does all the art and the design.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not hard if you're good at doing it that way, but it's not going to be.
Yeah, but
it's not simple.
He's got people doing the letters and the colors, but he did all the art.
I'm looking at
design.
some of the art styles. So basically that takes a long time because you have to lay it out and then you have to decide. Yeah, it's interesting.
and the fact that he doesn't draw attention to it, I think that's one of the things I like about it. Is that it's never. No one ever points at it and says, "Hey, look at this! Look at our art styles are different." No. It's just there from the beginning, and he carries it all the way through, and it never gets in the way. It's always kind of perfectly flowing in there, The story itself, like I said, is not the most complex story, but to some degree, you're not just there for the story. The story is interesting enough, coupled with that visual style. It's actually a really great book. So, yeah, I wanted to bring it to the table because if you like stuff that's weird, if you like really rich visuals,
Rich visuals,
yeah. I think that you'd really enjoy Echolands Volume 1. It is just the beginning. And you know what? Even if he never put out a second volume, I'm very happy I read this because just as an art project, it's gorgeous. And the way it ends is not so much a cliffhanger. Like, I can kind of work out how things would work out based on how this particular book ends. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't end on we're all going to fall to our death. Like, it ends with something that is surprising, but it's not like we're all going to die surprising. It's this might save the day surprising. You know what I mean? So yeah, that was the first thing I wanted to bring to the table. I thought you would find that interesting and visually enjoyable if you get a chance to check out. But and at one point they do find an island of robots, like Gundam style robots, like Japanese anime, and I love the logic with the robots. The robots won't leave the island, and there's one human character washes up on the island, and he's like, "Is this a whole island of like robots?" And they're like, "Yeah, we are AI. We are a community," and they're like, "We don't mix with people." And the guy who washes up on the shore is like, "But why?" And the robots are like, "Well, we have seen various versions of ourselves through the different worlds, and in every version, we turn on man and destroy them. And we don't want to destroy man. So the less contact we have with man, the more chance that can happen. The less chance we'll turn on them. And if we do turn, perhaps we won't understand them well enough to it's neat." And then there's a robot character that basically gets charged with taking this human back. And because otherwise they're going to kill him. Like they were like, we can either kill this human here and now so that our truce is not broken, or someone has to take him away, and whoever takes him away can't come back. And the Gundam character that basically opts to take him away says, "Well, I'll take him," and they're like, "That's fine." They're like, "But you cannot come back to the collective." They're like, and the human asks the robot that's saving him, like, "What does that mean?" And he's like, "Our minds are forever." He's like, "But our bodies break down." He's like, "And when our bodies break down fully, our minds are re-injected into the hive where we can kind of spend time with the group. And then eventually one day we are repurposed and we are plugged back into a body and we can live again, like on some level." And he's like, "But I'm coming with you." He's like, "Therefore, I will no longer be allowed to be plugged back into the hole because I will have had too much contact with humans."
Yeah.
And it's like, and it's a really neat concept where it's like he's saving this guy's life, but in doing so, he's essentially given up his resurrection.
Sure.
So it's like there's a lot of fascinating kind of things in there. I really am curious to see what the finished project looks like. But it's such a great book. That was probably one of the better things I read. Now, while I was sick, you and I played, was it Arkham Knight? Was it Arkham Knight? No, or Gotham Knights. What was it called?
Gotham Knights, yes.
Yeah, you and I played Gotham Knights. And the bad guys of that game eventually ended up being the Court of Owls. Which is an area of Batman I never got into, but everyone was like, "Oh, it's so good, you got to read it." So right before I got sick, I picked up 3 volumes of the Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo run on Batman when they did the New 52. And which is with the volume, was it Court of Owls, the City of Owls, and Death of the Family, right? And I figured I'd review these because Batman has become a character that I get less and less returns from. Isn't that funny? But like the mainstream Batman stuff, every time I read an Elseworlds book, the character is still so much fun to read about. But whenever I read these core universe DC books, it's just so
Is this just out of curiosity? Is this Batman: The Court of Owls saga DC? I'm trying to find the link to the one you have.
This is literally just.
Or is it Volume 1, The Court of Owls, New 52, with Batman on the cover, like jumping or being shot at by a bunch of people?
By fighting a bunch of people who are like.
That's it.
Him.
I got it.
Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's just become so kind of tired. They keep resetting the character, so it's kind of like watching too many Bond movies. You know, you get to that point where you're like, I mean, we've talked about this with Wolverine, where like I won't even come near a Wolverine comic now. You know, the last time I read a Wolverine comic was when I read his X-Force run, and
which was good.
That book was good, but it was good not because of Wolverine.
Well, and that was one of the things I was going to say, that I like. I wish that there was more of. They did this thing a while ago. I think Morrison did it, where he did. Or wait, Grant Morrison, I think, is now they. They did. I think it's Batman Incorporated. I think that's a Morrison.
Yes.
thing.
Oh yeah. Where he made it was like all the different Batmans all around the world.
Yeah, and that was such a great idea. That's the way to evolve the character. Was that actually? Yes, Grant Morrison. That's what I thought. That to me is the way you take a character that, like you said, we've seen forever and ever and ever and ever. And you don't destroy the concept, but you move the concept beyond the character.
Yeah.
You move it past.
and that's the thing. If Bruce Wayne is smart, you know, at some point or another, he's going to realize he can't do it on his own. But the problem is the Batman character in the comics is no longer human. He's superhuman. He's Captain America, right? I know they didn't give him super serum, but they might as well have, right? He recovers from everything super fast. You know, he's super strong. He's super smart. I mean, he's Captain America. So the Court of Owls, I told Joe very briefly about this, that it's an interesting idea, but it's an idea that relies heavily on retroactive plotting, because I've never heard of the Court of Owls before, and I've read a lot of Batman. So for this, they kind of had to go in and say, well, it's a new universe, and in this it's a new 52, and with the new universe, we're going to install all this history about Wayne's family and this myth about a court of owls in Gotham, and like honestly, it really would have worked as an Elseworlds, because then I probably would have bought it. But there's just so much, like the idea that Batman would miss the fact that on every floor of one of his buildings there was a hideout for like a supervillain group. I just don't believe that. You can't present a character to me that is this OCD about every fucking detail of existence, right? And then somehow have it that he missed that. That he just missed this, you know, it's just it's a little bit much. And the idea that there is a massive maze underneath Gotham, a massive maze that again somehow Batman missed. Batman, who's been everywhere in Gotham, and I think that's a weakness of the storytelling, because it's like you're saying to me that this is your character, but if this is your character, he would have done this. He would have known about it. This is not something that could have surprised him to the degree that it surprised him. I mean, it really just fucking blindsides him, right? Even though he knows the myth, you know, and then like the fact that it's not just that the myth is there, but that the myth is so massively intertwined with the history of the Waynes, and this, you know, and that they may have been responsible for killing his unborn brother, and then that one of the guys from the Court of Owls thinks that he's Batman's brother, and then he might be the brother, but we don't know. But like, yeah, and they may have killed Alfred's dad. Like, it's this whole thing where suddenly nothing is a coincidence and everything is tied into this, and you're like, that's a lot. That's a huge amount of shit to ask me to retroactively just plug in there, you know? And I know that Scott Snyder wasn't working on the books before, so this is the only way for him to do that. And I was kind of on board. I mean, I do like the idea of Batman's world suddenly going south, because, I mean, you're always presented with this Batman who knows everything that's going on. But you know what? So many Batman comics now have dealt with Batman City going fucking apeshit, that, like, I'd like to get back to a point where Batman's got it all under control. Do you know what I mean? Like there was a period there in like the 80s where you read Batman comics and like Batman had most shit under control, and then he was just kind of dealing with the big stuff that popped up, right? Whereas lately with Batman stories, it's like end of the world shit. It's like, not only is the Joker here, he's gonna kill everybody, you know, like it's that level of So The Court of Owls is not a bad book. It's a fun book. You can read it and write it through, and it's enjoyable. But like I said, it depends heavily on a lot of retroactive plotting. And Scott Snyder's Batman is, I don't know, he's a bit of a dick. Have you noticed that lately? Like the modern comics Batman is very much a dick. He doesn't want to tell anybody anything. Like they paint, like, this is why the Batman Incorporated thing I have an issue with. They paint him like he has this big family and he cares for them and they care for him. But he lies to them constantly and doesn't tell them shit. Like, he is the most untrustworthy stepdad. And he's like, I have your best interest in mind. But then he tells them nothing. You know, like, I get the reason why Nightwing was like, dude, I'm out of here. Here's Gotham.
Yeah, it's odd that they've decided to maximize that aspect, because he was always supposed to be a hard ass. The idea was, okay, this is not, fun guy.
No, but he doesn't. Yeah, but he doesn't delineate anything anymore. Like in these three books,
he wasn't verbally abusive.
No. In these three books, he completely stonewalls his Bat family. He doesn't ask them for help when he really should. And then at one point he implies they're busy doing other stuff. And I'm kind of sitting there going, what other stuff are they doing? Like, did they have orders? Are they just out patrolling? Like, are you implying that the Bat family?
You know what?
What?
You know what? I was wrong, because I forgot about the classic Batman meme where he's slapping Robin in the face, and that is from the old comics. So I guess he's always been this way. Oh, sorry, I pasted the wrong link. There.
No, there was a very happy duck that you sent.
Well, if you click it, that's the DuckDuckGo link. Here, this is better. This
yes,
one. You've probably seen this. You've seen this before?
Yes. But I mean, honestly, we have no idea what the context is. So for all you doing, possessed.
No, I think this is the actual panel. So I guess it's because, what the hell is this? Where is the root of this? I actually am now curious. What is the root of this slap? Let's see. Here it is. Popular meme analyzed. I should have just clicked the actual link. Let's see.
Proving Superman's guilt is my whole mission.
You know what? You called it. Alternate reality.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Yeah, because Batman was going to kill Superman with Lex Luthor.
Oh, well, there you go.
Because Lex Luthor told him he killed his father. Whoa, what is this? Holy crap, holy. All right. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah. An imaginary novel is the title of the comic. Okay, so yeah, I didn't think he was this much of an asshole.
No, but the thing is, like, he's not abusive. He doesn't tell them anything. And the thing is, these are supposed to be those that are closest to him, outside of Alfred, right? They work with him on a regular basis. They've become like him. And so you would expect him to trust them more. And I mean, there's a thing in there where he's so scared he doesn't want them to get involved. But Batman is smart enough to realize that they're already involved. Like, that's the thing, is that he somehow, that they play it off like if somehow the Bat family doesn't get involved, the Court of Owls won't touch them. But it's like, no, dude, you're in the middle of Gotham. And if the Court of Owls is Gotham, then how is your Bat family not affected by this? Like, yeah, so...
As I told you, I started reading these, and I quickly went, no.
Yeah. Not to mention, Batman looks like he's 20.
Well, that is the Wolverine problem. Unlike Judge Dredd, who now looks like he's about to fall apart because they've aged him as he's gone on.
Batman looks like he's 20. He looks like he's the same age as Dick Grayson.
Which, again, if they just kept going with the Incorporated or Batman Beyond, where he was older, I don't know why they don't do that.
And
I guess I know why.
The point that really, like, when the head Talon from the Court of Owls basically turns around and says, "I'm your brother," I was like, okay, this has gotten a bit soap opera for me. Like, this is a bridge too far. I was like, really? He has to be your brother? Like, And
it's the Real Housewives of Gotham City.
yeah,
geez.
yeah, and then he has like essentially
the real bat. What is it? The real Bat family of Gotham City.
Yeah, and he's got an Iron Man suit essentially, and he's like whipping the shit up. And Batman, I will give it this. Batman gets the shit kicked out of him through a lot of the Scott Snyder books. Like he does get just the shit kicked out of him. So, Court of Owls and City Owls is kind of the 2-volume run of the original run of the Court of Owls, and it ends there, and it's okay. I expected more. Because we played the Gotham Knights game, and in the Gotham Knights game, it's pretty ridiculous. So I was kind of hoping for something more than that, but like it didn't really get above Gotham Knights' level of ridiculousness, you know. And there's not enough Red Hood.
Well, that's now the statement for anything.
Right? Yeah. There needs to be
What's
more.
The percentage
Red Hood.
of Red Hood? Is it less than 100%? Then I don't care.
That's not good, right? So
needs more Red Hood.
Needs more Red Hood. Yeah. Needs more cowbell. So yeah, that's how I feel about those. They were an enjoyable enough read, but they were not the best Batman books I've ever read. I will say this: I enjoyed them more than I enjoyed the Tom King run on Batman, which was just man, that book left kind of a bad taste in my mouth. So these are better than that. They didn't leave a bad taste in my mouth. It's one of those things where you read it, and while you're reading it, you're like, this is enjoyable. And then when you get to the end, you're like, wait a minute, that doesn't make any fucking sense. And that's where Batman's gotten. Where like they just, I had this I'll get to the last book in a second because that's kind of the review for the first two. I had this realization that Batman for me works best in a world without superheroes. In fact, Batman for me, works best in a world without there even being villains. Like, the Joker thing is a neat idea, but I think I like the idea of Batman as a detective with better technology than a lot of the criminals have on the market, and going about cleaning his city up. Now, you can get people who want to try and combat him at that level, and that's where you kind of get your supervillains. But like, they take it too far. Do you know what I mean? Where it's like,
sure.
Two-Face, Penguin, these are all just guys with gangs, right? With agendas. Same with Riddler. It's when you get into stuff like, like Killer Croc. I don't mind Killer Croc, but you're getting into the realm of the super. And the thing is, like, once you get there, it's because you get these super villains, they suddenly have to make Batman a superhuman. And once he loses his physical limitations, all you've got left is his super mind, which means that there's nothing human about him anymore. So the third book is a Joker book, which is Death of the Family. Now, I had not read the storyline where Joker's face was removed, which in itself is like, okay, we're starting here. I already know this book is going to be a mess. Now, I liked this Joker book more than the Court of Owls, mainly because it really is about the Joker's obsession. Joker's been gone for a year. Batman, I guess they were because this is the New 52, there's no history, so like he had a bunch of battles with Batman, and then he went away, and so they haven't had to deal with him for a while, and everyone thought that maybe he was gone for good. They didn't hear anything about him, and then suddenly Joker shows up at Gotham PD, steals his face back that was, I guess, on ice for some reason, and he straps it back to his face, which is absolutely an infection nightmare. I would really love it if Joker died at the end of the comic from a facial infection. All right, but sure. That's too much reality stepping in. But it does start to corrode as the book goes on, and he's like flies around him and shit like that. But essentially, this book is that Joker comes back because he seems to be jealous of the idea that Batman has a Bat family, and that and as far as the Joker's concerned, it's always supposed to be Joker and Batman. They are the two main forces in the city, and Batman is the king, and the Joker is his jester. And everybody else is secondary to that. And the Bat family is bullshit, and they're just making him weak, and fuck them. And Batman needs to be reminded that Joker and him are like the key pair, right? And so the Joker goes about the Joker has been laying low, and it's kind of implied that he's been kind of just watching things, right? And then this big storyline unfolds where Joker's got a big plan, and no one. And I do like this idea with the Joker that Gotham at one point. What's his name? I forgot his name. The
Gordon.
Gordon. Fucking hell! I kept going. My brain kept going. Gotham. No,
I figured
Gordon.
by the G's, that's where you were going.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. So Gordon says to Batman, "This is hard because with Riddler or Penguin or any of them is like there's a logic because you're dealing with a person who's not insane. Whereas when you're dealing with an individual who doesn't necessarily have a normal sense of logic, you cannot make logical conclusions based on their behavior, which is why the Joker can get away from a lot because he's not working in a linear fashion. He's mad, so he's doing mad things, and you can't always predict that. I like that. That gives Joker's got an edge on Batman because he's fucking nuts. You know what? That's a clear statement. I'll go with that. And a lot of this book is Batman pushing his kids away, thinking that as long as he pushes them away, the Joker will focus on him and he'll figure out the Joker's plot and kick his ass. And Joker does get him fuck off angry, which I do like that. I like that you know, the Joker can break Batman's, like he's like, I'm Batman and I'm calm and I will destroy you. You know, like he does get to a point where he's like, Joker, I'm going to fucking take your head off. You know, like I like that. That's the bit of the humanity. But again, it's that stupid Batman thing where he's like, I push my family away, you know, and it's like it's so obnoxious that they did it in the Batman Lego movie. Like, it's that level of kind of stereotypical absurdity. And it's like, I just love it if we started to evolve past this. It's like, Batman's got a whole family. You'd think that at this point he would start to trust them. And it's just a continuation from the Court of Owls. It's like, they're in the city. They know these people. They're involved. This may be New 52, but they're holding on to, what was the one with the Joker shoots Batgirl?
What, Killing Joke?
Yeah, Killing Joke is still part of this universe. So they're picking and choosing the stuff they're holding on to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so Killing Joke is still part of this universe. You know, so it's like, it's shit like that where you're like, right, these people are involved, dude. Like, why wouldn't you? So, you know, and in the end, Joker tries to break Batman, and there's a lot of weird, fucked up stuff he does to shock and awe the reader, you know. And in the end, there is a sequence in there where Batman does think that Joker has cut off the face of all the Bat Kids, which I did genuinely sit there and say, there's no fucking way that they actually, this isn't an Elseworlds book. There's no way they did this, because then at the end of this book, someone's like, some super magical space doctor is gonna have to show up and reattach all their faces and be like, oh, it's good that we got those faces back on with no scars. Thank you for that alien technology, Hal Jordan, or some shit like that, right? Luckily, as the Joker puts it, it's all a big trick. And that's one of the things I like about the Joker, is that there's some shit he does that's awful, and then you realize, oh no, he really did that. And then there's some shit he does that's awful, and then you realize that it's a big gag. And it's like, I like that they maintain that some of it's just a big trick, just to piss you off, you know? And then some of it, no, he did do that. Haha, right? And even Harley Quinn is disgusted. Like, she helps the Joker early on, and then kind of backs out and says to Batman, I was like, you know, he's different this time. He's like, I'm kind of bailing on this. She's like, I think you should bail from this too. And Batman's like, I can't bail from this. Fuck you. So it is an enjoyable book in many of those aspects. There are holes, and Joker does try to get the Bat family to essentially murder itself, and they don't through the power of love, which is kind of a hilarious Care Bear ending for what is a very dark Batman book. But there is one stunning concept in this book that I will mention, because it was one of the things in this book. It makes it it shows me that the person writing it does to some degree understand Batman, and is always they're getting close. They flirt with kind of the greatness of the character and the greatness of the dynamics, which is that at one point Batman tells the Bat family that after one of his early battles with the Joker, they both fell into the ocean. The Batman couldn't find him, and he got in his boat, and he took the boat back to the Batcave. And part of the trip is like fully underwater, so it's like it turned into sub mode. When he got back to the cave, it was late at night, and he was exhausted. He parked the boat, went up to the Wayne Manor, and slept for a couple hours. And when he came back down, he found a Joker card on the pier next to the boat, and it looked like it could have been washed up onto the pier. Like it didn't necessarily have to have been placed there. And the Bat family freaks out. They're like, "Holy shit! Does this guy know our identities all this time? What does that mean?" Barbara Gordon says, "Is this how he knew to find me? Did he know I was Batgirl? Is that why he came?" And Batman's like, "No." He's like, and Batman's trying to tell them that it's not important. It doesn't matter. But they don't. And this is the thing, is that he could have told them the other part of this story, and it would have shut them up. But he doesn't. He keeps it a secret, and he doesn't tell them the other half of the story, blah, 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 blah. And, like, I know that it's a narrative effect, but it basically just makes it so that Batman is keeping secrets that he doesn't need to keep, right? So he keeps saying, "Don't worry." He's like, "I don't think that stuff matters." It's a Joker. Joker doesn't know our identities. It's okay. He would. I was traveling at 50 miles per hour. He would have to hold his breath for like 5 hours. Like this, Joker didn't get into the cave. But then later on, he's talking to Alfred about that card, and Alfred's like, "How did you know that he, that he didn't know?" And Batman says, "Well, it's partly that he didn't know." He's like, "And partly that he didn't care." And Alfred's like, "What do you mean he didn't care?" And he's like, "Well," and he tells a story about how he was, as Bruce Wayne, he organized a trip to tour Arkham, saying that he was going to build a wing or some shit. And he was there, and they were touring, and he organized a situation where he was momentarily left alone near where some of the criminals were, near where their cells were. And he walked up to the glass and to Joker's mirror, and he held up the card and said, "Hey, I found this. I think it's yours." And Joker looked over, and he recognized the card. And then he looked right through Bruce Wayne. And Bruce Wayne, Batman says, he looked right through me. He didn't recognize me. He didn't want to recognize me. And he said, the reality here is that Joker doesn't care about Bruce Wayne. Joker cares only about Batman, about Joker and Batman. And this is exemplified by the fact that later on in the book, what finally kind of stops Joker is that Batman threatens to tell him who his real identity is, what his real name is. And this maddens Joker to the point that he essentially throws himself off a cliff. He will not hear it, because it's not about who they really are. It's about this: I am the Joker, you are Batman. Everything else is unimportant. Who we really are doesn't matter, because this is who I think we really are. And I like that idea, because that's an idea that I haven't read before in a book. That's a new Batman thing that makes a lot of sense. That I don't care who you really are, because who you are is meaningless. If you're not Batman, then you're pointless to me. It's you being Batman that makes this fun. I don't want the normal part of you. I want the freak like me, so we can play. Right? And that was one of the things I actually really did enjoy from this Batman book, which is something new. And that's, it's rare that you get a new facet that works. So the Scott Snyder run so far, it's enjoyable enough. It's not incredible. I kind of put it in give it like a B+, like that kind of thing. What I would probably read one or two more just to see what the steam looks like, or if they start to lose it. And I do acknowledge that there are enough really kind of clever ideas in there that it's enjoyable, but you start to enjoy everything other than Batman. Isn't that terrible?
Well, that's exactly what I was getting to with the idea that the Batman Incorporated was the most interesting Batman development to me in a long time, because it wasn't Batman. Because, like we've said with Wolverine and all these other characters, when you don't get a break from them, you get bored. Just like anything else, you need a break sometimes. And so the idea of spreading Batman out and outsourcing him At one point, when Robin was Batman, that was interesting. I read that book. I reviewed it. I thought it was very interesting because
it was
he
when
was
Batman
different.
and Damian, right?
No, it was when Nightwing took over. When Nightwing, because I don't remember where Batman was. Batman left.
Right.
This is 3, 4, 5, 10 years ago, whatever.
Well,
But,
Nightfall. That's why Nightfall was interesting because
actually,
Batman lost it.
What was that one?
Batman wasn't Batman, and Azrael took over, and then Azrael turned
Yeah,
the whole
exactly. Yeah.
the Batman thing into himself, and then Batman wanted it back, and it was
Right.
like, okay, this is interesting, like this interplay.
Yeah. Trying to see where, because I remember I had reviewed that book. What was it called? It wasn't Court of Owls, but it was something like that.
But I mean, I realized the other day that you could make a stunning Batman movie with like no budget if you just had a decent costume, right? And you knew how to do the camera work, right?
Mhm.
I'm convinced you could make a stunning Batman movie where you don't even ever see the cave and you don't even see the Batmobile, because you would almost make it from the point of view of Gordon, and then just have it be that they're solving a crime and Batman would just reappear and disappear as the story goes. You know what I mean? And it's
Yeah.
really about Gordon investigating a crime and Batman helping him, and then the two, because I mean you get stories like that where like the really cool character is the secondary character, but you're with like the straight-laced, the all-American character. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we always want, it's the whole, you can't just have Sherlock Holmes, because Sherlock Holmes is some kind of sociopath, and like you won't understand him if he was on his own. You need him to have Watson, right? And the story is told from Watson's point of view. Well, I would love to have a Batman story, and to some degree, that's why is it Batman Year One that's told. Half of it is basically is Gordon's story, and then the other
I
half
believe
is
so.
kind of,
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
yeah, and I love that book because it shows the other side of what's going on and shows how the presence of this individual affects the everyday. So, anyhow,
I
those are my reviews.
I will do a short review. I mean, because it doesn't really require a long review, but I finished the book about the David Lynch Dune movie called Masterpiss in Disarray. It's much longer than that, but this is a excellent book in terms of being about a film. It's an oral history of the David Lynch Dune film. Now, I would recommend this to anybody who is interested in film history, whether you really like Dune or not. I mean, if you hate Dune, you probably don't want to read it, but you don't have to love Dune like me to get it. I put this up with the Blade Runner book. What is it? Future Noir, I think is the one that's kind of the classic.
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I believe.
You know what I realized the other day about that Dune movie?
Yeah.
His costume design for those.
There's a ton about that.
Is just so incredible that
same guy from that went to Batman. That's the guy who did the Batman suit.
Really?
The Michael Keaton one? Because
Oh,
he
that makes
demonstrated how it could be done in
yeah.
a way that worked, because nobody had cracked it before that guy.
And so
the suits led to it.
And then when they did the new Dune movie, right? I was saying to my wife, is like, when you look at the new suits that they did, there's still a minor echo of his suits, because I think I remember the director saying in some interview that, like, they were trying to make it more off the books, but that there are aspects of the movie design wise that are iconic.
Yeah.
And they get into the psyche. Those still suits, if you like sci-fi and you watch that movie, those still suits are in the back of your mind.
I agree.
And that's to some degree why I respected the TV series, because they tried so hard to go to the books and to kind of be like, okay, let's make this without the movie in mind, right? Which, I mean, some people won't like that because they really like the movie, but I like the fact they tried so hard to do a different version.
Well, and that's one thing about this book that I wanted to point out, is it really isn't just about the Lynch film. It's 80% about that, but as they wrap up kind of the movie and after it comes out and everything that happened, they then get into all the other attempts, including the new movie, where they're talking about things that did right and wrong, some of the stuff that was changed. And that's what I mean about this is a great book, because it's about really the totality of all the attempts to make Dune into a film or miniseries.
It's so crazy too that this one book, there's such a thing around this book trying to make it into a proper movie, right?
Oh yeah. Oh well, because there's so much to it, and there's so many parts to what happened and what went on. And they do talk about the miniseries, and they interview people who say it should never be made into anything because you can't adapt Dune properly. It just cannot be done because of the way the story is told. And the fact that modern sensibilities are not going to allow you to tell the story properly because it's a critique of Messiah complexes, which won't go over well in many societies where there are deities.
Oh, yeah, absolutely,
yeah. Yeah. Right. And so there's people who are like, you will never adapt this properly because it will never be tolerated. Nobody with the budget to make this properly will ever support it because it cannot be marketed. It's impossible.
Not when you really get into it. I mean,
a true adaptation, not to mention that the hero is the villain. That's the other thing. They're like, yeah. And plus people want the hero to be the hero. They don't want to have the hero be the villain unless it's really short, like in The Dark Knight where, Two-Face goes down in like 4 hours. And that's it.
Well, what do they mean by that? What is their how do they define him necessarily as the villain?
Well, in other words, that Muad'Dib is not a Messiah who is like Jesus and helps everybody. He is in fact the downfall of everything.
He takes over everything, and he laments it too. Like he feels bad that the Fremen then are suddenly like all over the universe.
Right. And that's where the
that's why you need all the books. Not Children of Dune, but you need Muad'Dib walking off into the desert.
Yes, that's the thing. And you have to get all the way through to the end of Messiah, the book.
Yeah.
To really capture the story, which is his rise and fall. And that's what a lot of people are saying. People don't want a hero that rises and falls like this.
And the thing is, the end of Messiah is such a... I mean, it's not spoilers. These books have been out for years.
It's a galactic downer.
When Chani dies, man, I felt so awful in that book because I knew that at Muad'Dib's core was always his, Paul's love for her was always at the core of his character. I like to joke around that his love for for Chani was so overwhelming that it kind of echoed back because he's dreaming of her before he ever meets her. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like, this was a core relationship to your identity that echoed back down to before you even ever met her. And then when he loses her, there's nothing left. Like none of it matters. And to the degree that even, his children, like nothing matters anymore to Paul Atreides. Like that is the end of him. Yeah. So it's And there is a selfishness to the character. It's funny because there is a selfless and selfish aspect to the character.
Yes.
That he does all this stuff, but on losing her, that's it. There's nothing else.
Well, and that's part of the argument is that it's a book that has a conflicting requirements. On the one hand, you can absolutely do the story of the rise and fall on a small scale, but Dune demands a large scale, which means a ton of money and a big budget. Yeah. Yes. And so the problem is those are conflicting things to make a film out of. You can write a book that way. You can write a comic that way. You can even do an animated or even possibly a miniseries, but you'd probably have to animate it. But to do a big budget film, and that's why even the new one, these people said, even that one isn't it. It's part of it. But you can't. This book is potentially
I still haven't seen it.
Unadaptable.
I keep meaning to see it.
Watch it at some point. It's worth. The second part's going to be out soon, so you might as well wait and just watch it all. But anyway, and the best part is, and this was a surprise to me because I knew I was buying this book. Period. I bought it not only physically but digitally. So that tells you how much I wanted this book. I wanted both versions of it. And so I didn't read much about it because I don't care. I'm going to be interested. I mean, a 4-year-old could write this, and as long as it is actually interviews with people, I'm going to read it. I don't care.
as long as there's actual information, I'm happy.
Yeah, then I'm in. And the way I read it, I knew it was better than that. I knew it wasn't going to be that bad. So even if it had been sloppily written, I wouldn't have cared. So I didn't read that much about it in terms of all the layout of it. So I'm going along. I'm like, oh, this is great. There's all these wonderful stories, all these funny little bits. And the interviews are great because they're not all positive. There are people that worked on it were like, yeah, this was a piece of shit and this was never going to work because there was no way this is not a David Lynch property. You can't do this. Why would they ever? So it's funny because there's some very frank
Well, because
interviews
he wanted to kind of take off and do his own thing. I mean,
well, yeah, but also there were people who were like, well, if you knew David Lynch's work, why would you
ask him? Yeah.
Right. This is not the person to do this.
Yeah,
and
he was never going to do it straight. He was going to do it his way.
Right. And there's lots of stuff that, that it's a great book, but then you get to the end. And the thing about the David Lynch in this movie is he never talks about it. He hates it. He finds it to be, he's said many times it was the worst thing he ever did.
Which is a shame though, because it is not a bad movie. It's a great movie.
And many people who worked on it say that the thing is the cut that got released is not great, but the stuff he shot was fantastic. And there was lots of really good ideas. And even the stuff that's released visually and conceptually is very interesting because there's things he put in there that were not in the book. And people are like, that's a lot better than what Herbert did because it makes more sense. And some of the visuals, all this type of thing. And then you get to the end of the book and he interviews David Lynch, who is willing to talk about it and has now softened on it.
Wow.
Which when I saw, because it said interview David Lynch, I went, okay, this is going to be archival. And it's like, no, I sat down with him and he has changed let's put it this way. He's not going to say it's a great movie. But he's more positive about it now and is actually somewhat open to coming back to it on maybe a director. They'd have to pay him. That's going to be the sticking point. Someone would have to give him money. He's not going to do it for free.
Oh, to manipulate it or something like that?
To do some type of revisit on it. I mean, I don't know if it'll ever happen. He's getting older. It might be something where the time runs out on it, but he is at least not, because one thing he says is one of the unfortunate things about the way he destroyed the movie in his interviews was he's like, I didn't realize for a long time that I wasn't giving credit to all the people who worked really hard on this movie and it's not their fault. And when I would talk about it so negatively, it made it sound like everybody involved was, doing a bad job. Right. And he's like, no, the people were excellent. And everybody who talks about him, nobody has anything bad to say about no one. And that's always been a Lynch thing is he's very good, as is the person we're going to talk about in our movie review very shortly. Is you don't hear a lot of bad stuff about him. He doesn't lose his temper. He doesn't.
No, not as an individual. No, not as a person.
Correct. And so they were like, yeah, the movie was terrible, but my memories of working on it are fantastic. It was great. We were having and they were apparently down in Mexico drinking a lot, which I'm sure helps. So, they were like, yeah, we were drunk all the time. It was great. We're creating big phallic worms and we're fucking drinking all day. It was woohoo. Let's do it. This type of thing. So it's a stellar book. Like I said, I would put it right up there with the Future Noir book in terms of, because that's to me is the gold standard of books I read about a movie where I'm like, this is a great background on a movie that has so much to talk about with it, that has so many layers to it. And it makes sense because Ridley Scott is a very visual filmmaker. So is David Lynch. And, when movies have a lot when they're not just, okay, we had the perfect idea. We got the perfect people. We made it perfectly and it came out and it was a hit and go home, everybody. That typically is not going to be as interesting a story. It's going to be the train wrecks, the difficult shoots, that type of thing.
I don't know. Lord of the Rings is fucking. I've watched more about the Lord of the Rings movies than I have the Lord of the Rings movies.
Well, but that is also similar in that a lot of the effects work was kind of groundbreaking. That's what I mean. It wasn't. They didn't just stamp it out. That movie took a ton of work. I'm talking about a movie where everything just fits together perfectly. I haven't seen a lot of really great stuff about Jurassic Park because from all accounts,
it was all just about the effects.
Well, they cracked the code on it pretty quickly, figured out what they were going to do, and they made the movie based on the book, and it worked very well, and it was a hit. Yeah. So you get I'm not going to say there's no interesting stories, but do I think there would ever be a book like this about Jurassic Park? Probably not, because it's Spielberg, and he knew what he wanted.
Well, everyone knew what they were doing. Everyone knew what they wanted. They gave him the money. They gave him the freedom, and he did, and they did it. Ta-da!
Whereas, again, Peter Jackson, nobody, if you remember, nobody thought that was going to be that great. They were like, this guy, the bad taste guy? No, he can't make a Lord of the Rings movie that's going to be any better than what's come before. And that's what I mean about...
It can't be filmed. It's going to be too hard. Oh, he's using... Yeah. No, it just... Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So that's what I mean about, movies where everything makes sense and works relatively easily typically are not as interesting. Movies that had some type of
a train wreck
struggle, not even necessarily train wreck, but like I said, Lord of the Rings wasn't a train wreck by any account, but they had to do a lot to make that work. There was a lot of stuff that had never been done before.
They had to be clever.
the Gollum stuff with Circus. What's his Andy Serkis?
Yeah, it wasn't even ready until the second movie.
Not only that, but the fact that they got somebody who was that good at it. That's another thing. Where
who embraced it
he
fully.
became the thing, right? So that's why a movie like that has a lot to it, because there was so much that had to be not necessarily invented, but really refined. And I'm sure that and I mean from the supplementals, there were times where they weren't sure it was going to work, and that's the interesting bit. So anyway, that, by the way, the Lord of the Rings background stuff, that is what I would say is the gold standard of background visual material, like on a disc that you can watch. That is the best by far, as far as the comprehensive top to bottom how that movie's made.
I think it's great that they actually talked to him.
It is. And the book, even if it hadn't had that, they talked to almost everybody: Kyle MacLachlan, Sean Young, Virginia Madsen, everybody who's alive.
Oh yeah, I forgot that Sean Young was in that.
Yeah,
Johnny.
Yeah. And they even talked to the woman who was cut out of the theatrical one. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they kind of sped up romance. Their love grew. All right, let's move to the next thing. That's the thing, is they had to chop it so badly that a lot of that stuff got nailed.
And what's hard with the books is that in the books he starts as a teenager, and then by the time he comes back from the desert, he's like a man.
Yes.
And the thing is, they blow over the fact that he spends I think it was 8 years in the desert fighting the Carconans. And
you might not even notice that in the movie. I don't think they even.
Yeah,
they just show lots of battles, but it really doesn't convey the amount of time.
Yeah, honestly, the best way to do it was that if somebody said, how would you make a Dune movie? One of the first things I would do is I would find two actors that look pretty similar, one in their 20s and one who's 12, and I would start I would start off with him 12, 13 years old.
Well, if anybody's going to think about doing it that's listening, go find whoever cast the German series Dark, because that person got doppelgangers and they're not related. I mean, it's because that's 3 time periods, and those people we looked up whether they were related because they looked like parents and children.
It's so baffled you.
It is amazing how similar most of those actors look to their older and younger. It is stunning how good that is. The fact that they found people who look so alike and were good actors. So that's the other trick. But so yeah, I would say that's a great book. If you have any interest in Dune, or you're like me and you love the movie and think that everybody who thinks it's crap is out of their mind, it is absolutely worth reading. So I just wanted to point that out, especially because there is a Lynch interview at the end, which really I literally reacted with the jaw drop when I realized he had talked to him for this book, which was only released I think this year. So this is new material relatively. Because it covers, like I said, part 2 obviously isn't in there, but part 1 of the new movie and everything else, miniseries, the Jodorowsky stuff, or Hodorowski, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right.
Did Lynch have anything to say about the new movie?
He's never seen it because, okay. I don't know whether that has changed very, very recently, but he famously he was not engaging with Dune at all. So, no, he didn't have anything to say on that, at least at that point. Now, the other thing is, my suspicion is that I don't know that he would even be interested in that story had he not been involved with it.
No, it's not his area.
Yeah, because even with the interviews that are older where he's talking about the movie, he's really not talking about Dune all that much. He's really just talking about elements of the story that he likes, not that he likes the story. So, but great book. Great book.
Well,
that's all I want to say about that. But yeah,
it sounds interesting.
It is fascinating.
And now we come into our final review, which honestly is not going to be as long as I thought it would be. I think because
no, probably not.
Only because there's not so much to say about it in the sense. So Joe watched Rebel Moon.
Part 1. Let's point out Part 1.
Zack Snyder movie.
Yes.
And he really enjoyed it. And he told me that he really enjoyed it. And it kind of spelled out for me exactly what I thought it was going to be. And so I went and watched it with my kids. And it turned out it is exactly what I thought it would be. Yeah. So we figured we'd review it because we actually both enjoyed it. But there's a caveat to that, which is that we both enjoyed it. It is visually a beautifully fun movie. But Zack Snyder movies are light on script, fun to watch, visually fun to watch. And that is Rebel Moon. It is light on script, but it's fun to watch. It looks great. There's plot holes in there you could drive a truck through. There's shit in there that I had to explain to Joe, and Joe turned to me and said, "You know what? That's not really well fleshed out there, story-wise, right? And you know what? My wife, same problem. The thing with Jumon Hunsu, where she was like, "Oh, was he a gladiator?" And then she had me thinking, "Oh, maybe he wasn't a gladiator." I was like, I just figured that he was at the gladiator fights. He was one of the gladiators who just happened to drink a lot between fights.
Honestly, the movie offers nothing to dispute nor confirm your explanation.
Exactly, and that's a lot of this movie, which is it's light on script. It neither confirms nor denies. It is just visually stunning to look at.
For a script that borrows so liberally from so many places, it is remarkably light on story.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is that you can watch this movie and it's like a best of science fiction ideas. Like so the reason that this movie came attention to me and Joe is the fact that it was supposed to be a Star Wars movie. Right. He wrote this, and I guess he presented this to Disney as a Star Wars movie, and then they decided they were going to go in a different direction or whatever, and so he took it, and I think they changed it just enough so he wouldn't get sued, which at times is a bit close, I have to say.
Very close.
And they made this movie. And so if you watch this movie as a Star Wars movie, it's very easy to imagine that the bad guys are the Empire. And if I was going to put this movie somewhere in the Star Wars timeline, I would put this, I think I told you that, I would put this movie right after the fall of the Empire. Essentially when the Emperor takes over and the Empire is basically still taking over shit in the galaxy. That's where I would put this. This is in that area. But I mean, I'm sure it'll veer off now. I think he probably changed the ending is really what he did. Because once he realized it didn't have to be like Star Wars canon, he was probably like, you know what? I can kill whoever I want. But, and there isn't a lot of force powers. There are some things that come off as force powers. There are some.
Well, there's one thing that's never gotten into after it's shown for what. Well, I don't care about spoiling it. When the girl brings back the bird, that is mystical, right? And it just comes and goes.
Yeah,
there's
and
no real delving into that.
There are some lightsabers throughout the movie.
Yeah, although those could be sci-fi heat blades. At least that one you can say might not be mystical. But the girl bringing back the bird, even though her back is turned.
No, the way she does it, and
that has to be mystical.
Yeah,
has to.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So, but they just pick that up and drop it in about 2 seconds. But essentially, this is Star Wars, Dune, and the Seven Samurai put in a blender.
Yeah,
that's what it is. And but the visuals are great. It starts off.
It looks good. The fighting, you said that you thought the fight sequences were slow. I thought the fight sequences were fine. They were enjoyable.
No. When I say slow, I don't have any problem with the choreography. I mean that they strike, their actual movements seem like rehearsal movements. They don't seem like the finished movements.
They're dancing. Oh, they're dancing. The whole movie's dancing.
Yeah, I guess.
And her cape, man, I can't, either the cape is CG or they took them so many takes to get that right. Do you know if the capes in 300 were CG? Because they did a lot of interesting cape work in 300.
I don't know.
I wonder, because that's the thing. He loves his fucking capes. He loves to swirl them around and spiral them and have them move. I
don't know.
Like Zack Snyder loves his very sort of theatrical, Phantom of the Opera cape work.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But no, I enjoyed it. I wasn't going to watch it. Not anytime soon. But then you watched it and you basically confirmed, the script is light, but it's visually great to look at. And I've always said that about Zack Snyder movies. Like Sucker Punch is not a good movie, right? The storyline is stupid, but if you take those action sequences and watch them, they are so much fucking fun. I just want all those stripped together. That's really what Zack Snyder needs. He's actually a good action movie director. Just don't give him content. I'm sure you watched. Was it Army of the Dead? Is that what it was called?
Army of the Dead. I liked it. Yes,
yeah,
I liked Army of the Dead.
And you liked it. You thought that it was a fun action movie.
I did.
I didn't want to see it because I get bummed when everybody dies, but it was still a fun action movie, right?
Yes, I had a good time with it.
Yeah. So like that's the thing. This is Zack Snyder's area of expertise. And surprise, he nailed it.
You know what? No, apparently it is not CG. She trained with the cape.
Really?
I just found it. Yep.
Oh, you know what? That's impressive because they do some really good work with that cape. The swirling.
Yeah,
the movement.
she looked at some of the playback and realized that she wanted to make sure that she had the cape moving in interesting ways. So they kept working on it. So from what I see, this is real. Yeah,
it is stunning the way that cape moves. Like it's a character unto its own. I told my wife it should be in the cast list.
I should.
I can't imagine how many they must have gone through though.
Oh, but probably.
Yeah, but yeah. So it's if you're looking for some light, fun sci-fi content that doesn't demand anything of you and won't give you anything past that point. Yeah, watch Rebel Moon, man. It was fun. Eat it, watch it with some popcorn, and then go on with your life.
Now, I don't know if you were aware of this bit, but the version that we watched is the PG-13 version.
Oh, okay.
There is an R-rated version that Zack Snyder is saying is a completely different movie.
What?
That's what. Yep. So I didn't tell you this before. Yeah, I wanted your actual reaction to this.
How is this? Zack Snyder needs to start just making the goddamn movie he's making.
Well, that.
But I wonder if Netflix wanted to have the access because my kids wouldn't watch the rated R version.
I think that's what it is. So here it is.
Yeah.
I will get you the quote.
Yeah.
So let's see. From the beginning, the plan was always to cut two different versions of the film: a PG-13 cut for its premiere release that could play to a larger audience, kids,
there you go.
youngers,
okay.
and an R-rated cut that would offer a more unfiltered, Snydery take on the saga. Okay, and the quote is, all right. Here's his quote. Quote. It's more about a deep dive into the universe. It's a lot more, end quote. And then he went on, quote, it's almost like the story takes place in a slightly different dimension than this movie that's about to come out,
so
end quote.
Grittier, rapier, violenter.
Well, that's what I'm wondering is, okay, because there are parts of it.
Because there's at least two near sexual assaults, or sexual assaults in this movie. Early on.
Also, characters vanish from the movie or are gone for large portions, and I wonder if we're going to get more of them. For example, in an early rape scene, there's a character who is with the soldiers who resists them, and then he vanishes. I don't know if he's dead
or the
alive,
young soldier.
Or what, the young male soldier.
Yeah.
The robot, voiced by Anthony Hopkins.
He doesn't show up till the end, but I think he's going to be important in the next movie.
Well, right, but that's set up.
Yeah.
Like a whole thing, and then he's gone, and then at the very end, you see him for 1 second wearing
why he's
antlers.
become the hooved head.
Well, I don't know, but there's already an action figure of that end scene version of him, which is interesting because it's like okay. But I wonder, and plus when they're jumping from planet to planet, we get almost no backstory on any of these planets or any of the people. So I wonder if this is going to be a 4-hour long. Super version with everything put in. I don't know, but it makes sense why Netflix wanted a PG-13 version. They wanted it to be broad release. I get that part. What doesn't make any sense is how could it be so different? Because I'm just trying in my head to work out how much the story changes.
I don't think it's going to be that different. I think it's just going to be more of.
Then why would he say it could take place in a different dimension?
Well, because it's probably the level of violence, and also
maybe that's it. Maybe it's
the level of violence, and if you've got a few more scenes with characters, if you find out that while they were away, that whole farm was killed off, and so and at the end, when they're riding back to the town, right? I thought they were all going to be dead. And that was going to be
we never see the town, right?
Exactly.
It cuts.
So,
they're dead. No, there's no doubt about it. They're dead.
But you think they're all dead as well?
Oh, okay. Absolutely. Well, this is ripping off Star Wars, which means Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen are dead, which means the town's dead.
I think they're all dead.
Yeah, which is a shame because the movie starts out with a large beardy man saying, "We have slain an animal, and now we shall all fuck in celebration of it," which is a hell of a way to open your movie. So
we shall all fuck and be plenty. Yes. No,
I mean that's what he says.
Yeah, no, I found it enjoyable, and and you know what? If he does an R-rated cut of the movie, I will also check that out.
Well, and that's another reason I think they did it this way is because it really benefits both Netflix and Snyder. If you think about it in this way, the benefit to Netflix, of course, is now people will come back to watch it again, and will probably do, in some cases, a watch of the original and then watch this, so it keeps people on their platform. So it's nothing but upside for them. They get more people to watch a PG-13 version because it is a fairly safe movie. I don't even know if there was swearing. I don't remember hearing a curse word.
There is, okay, so as a parent.
Is there?
There is swearing. There isn't a lot of swearing, but there is swearing. And the violence and the bad guys are cartoonishly bad. So it's one of those things where like they are so over the top cartoonishly bad that it does become kind of absurd where you have a character walk in and literally they should just walk around going, I'm the bad guy. I'm going to do bad things. Right. You know, like,
but the reason it's PG-13 is because of the 2 rape scenes.
Yeah. Well, okay. First off, they're not rape scenes. Okay. So let me explain this to parents with kids. There is a scene where a girl is attempted to be, they are going to rape her, right?
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah.
They say things, but there's no nudity. And before things can get to a point where it would be bad, they're all murdered. So she is saved. Later on, in a bar, somebody offers to buy the main girl's cohort and grabs him by the crotch, which is sexual assault. There is no nudity, and the bad guy is quickly dealt with by the girl, right? So they are brief scenes. They're not drawn out to any length. You know what I mean?
Well,
they're not gratuitous.
They're not, but if you had a child who didn't know what rape was, you would have to explain what it was for these scenes to make any sense.
You know what? My wife and I had a big conversation actually about this because
wouldn't you? If your child knew nothing about it and said, "Well, what was going to happen there?" You have to explain it, wouldn't you?
My wife and I had this big conversation about what we were doing with this movie because we realized that there was this scene early on. I looked it up. I always look this shit up. I don't like to be blindsided. And my wife was like, "Well, you know, that could be bad." And I said, "Yeah, but you know what? If we don't start showing them even hints of the kinds of violence that can exist in this world, they will not be prepared when it comes their way."
Oh yeah.
You know,
but the reason I called them rape scenes is because someone would have to explain what rape is. Therefore, to me, you call them a rape scene because you're not somebody who doesn't know what rape is not going to understand what's happening until you explain to them what rape is. Yeah. So they are rape scenes, even if it doesn't graphically happen. If someone doesn't know what that is, they are rape scenes because you're not going to have to explain it. So you're right. That PG-13, that's why that 13 is there, because they assume by 13 you have some, you either through your explanation as a parent or from riding on the bus to high school, they have some idea of what rape is by now.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
but it is largely for a Snyder film. It is not that harsh of a movie. So on the other side, that's where I was going with this, is now that there is a Snyder cut, that now brings all the people in who want to see his unfiltered vision, and Netflix can say, well, this is a very, very adult movie, and that's why we have this version for the more general audiences. We would caution you, if you're going into this one, it is a very R-rated film, and you should know that. But you could watch both, and then ideally watch both, and then you could decide what's you're comfortable showing your children, because either way, you're watching the movie on our service, so we don't care. And for Snyder, it's a way to say,
clicks. As long as you just give us the clicks.
Yeah, and Snyder can say, this is my pure vision, and this is what my Star Wars would have been. Gory and rapey, yay!
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you watch 300, I mean, you know, it's a bit, it's
subtle.
Yeah, exactly. You know, Zack Snyder is heavy-handed, but he does action really well.
Well, and the ship designs are great. It looks very good. Visually, I have nothing bad to say. I did not find the slow motion in this to be as bad as in some other movies of his where it's really overused. I thought it was, I mean, look, he clearly is a slow motion fetishist. That's just the reality of it. He's not into feet, he's into slow motion.
He likes to see people moving, really.
He likes to see extraordinarily ripped dudes going, and leaping. And
ripped everybody. Ripped everybody, dude. Come on. The
Well,
only
no, but-
person,
okay.
the only person in this movie who's not ripped is what would you call her? The sword witch.
Oh, the Blade Witch, the cybernetic Blade Witch. I love the cybernetic Blade Witch. She may be ripped. We never really get a physique of her that we can tell.
Well, that's what I mean. She's the only character in this that could potentially not be ripped.
This is another thing. I saw her and I immediately thought, oh, this is a 90s anime character. I'm like, this is fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Because her whole
Especially
look,
with the little
she's like
hat
Vampire
and
Hunter
everything.
D or Vampire Hunter C for cybernetic cyberblade arms. Oh man, she's amazing. I that character alone makes me like this movie. Even if the movie was shit, she's so good I could watch a whole movie of her. The reason I said ripped guys is because the guys spend a lot of time with their shirts off. The women don't. Now, maybe
the
in the
one
R-rated
guy,
version they do.
that one poor guy. I think it's like Prince Tarlac or whatever his name is.
Tarlac,
Yeah, that poor guy. They kept him shirtless the whole fucking movie.
Until the very end, he was wearing some kind of shawl or whatever.
Yeah, but like they kept him shirtless from the time he shows in that movie. He's shirtless, and they did that like dehydrated physique thing to him, where like he has to look like there's an ounce of water in his skin, and he must have been so uncomfortable for most of that filming. It is hard. It really is. Whatever orientation you are, you cannot take your eyes off his body. It is so action figure-y that I kept looking at him going, that does not look human. I mean, I know it is. No, he looks. You know what he looks like? He looks like one of those guys from 300.
He does, yeah. So obviously, like I said, that's another thing Zack Snyder likes. So that's fine. You're going to get a lot of that in this movie, but there's something else that you can have in the PG-13 version. Now, maybe in the R-rated version, there's a lot more female nudity. I don't know because I don't know where you would even put female nudity in this. Well, it's a different dimension. So what do I know? I don't know. Yeah, I know. You know, maybe the squid thing that's so grotesquely and bad CG-ly feels up the villain. Maybe that's a tentacle octopus woman with 8 breasts. I don't know. Oh, maybe there's a wider shot where it clamps on his penis. Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying is I don't know what, there could be entire scenes cut out. You know what? I'm not going to give it any more thought because that's the kind of movie this is. Oh, no. I give a lot of thought to. I'm going to watch the R-rated one. I'm very curious what the difference is. Oh, so will I. No. I'm not saying that's the stuff I'm giving thought. Is what was cut out. I'm not even gonna think about it because let's just see, because I mean we might watch it and be like, oh, okay, yeah. You know what? There's no blood. Here's the thing. I noticed this. There's no blood. He took all the blood out. He Star Wars the blood. Yeah, or G.I. Right. So when he says it's happening in another universe, really what he's saying is that he's going to put all the blood back into Star Wars. Possibly. Well, and the other thing is the Spider-Woman had no nipples. Will she have nipples in the other? Yeah, that's what I mean. These are all little things where I'm like, okay, this is the stuff. I hope it's not that superficial. Because listen, because at one point when that guy shoots that guy in the neck with that weird railgun thing, right? Yeah. I didn't even realize he shot him because there's no blood. There's no nothing. I have a feeling that there is a buttload of blood that was digitally. Well, did you notice, though, there were a lot of bullet rounds that seemed like they were lava squirts? Yeah. I wonder if that will be blood. But yeah. I hope it's not just that. I hope there are actual long sequences where we get... I mean, I would not mind watching a 4-hour version of this. Everyone says fuck at the end of their sentence. Yeah. They'll do the thing. They'll be like, we're going to another planet. Fuck! Like... But visually, I would absolutely... Because the reviews from the critics have been... interestingly... Audience scores have been good. Critic reviews have been terrible. I understand that. It's an empty movie that piggybacks off of a lot of other ideas. That's the truth. Yes. But it's hilariously fun to watch. It looks really good. It doesn't demand anything from me. It doesn't woo me with false statements. No, it's just a space romp sci-fi. You know what this is? This is fucking Solo. Yeah, and I enjoyed Solo because it stepped away from the center core and said, "Hey, let's make this sci-fi, caper space movie." Ha ha ha! They were like, "That's not." Yeah, go on. I saw a user review that I actually, honestly, not being sarcastic or over whatever. Yeah. Somebody said I would watch this again before any of the newer Star Wars movies, and I agree. I would watch this again before. I have not rewatched any of the new. Sequels, the new sequels. You know what? Sequel trilogy. I would watch the first one again, the Force Awakens, and only because I like Daisy Ridley, and I do like the lightsaber fights. I I will watch the new movie they do with just her. If that still happens.
Are they going to do a Daisy Ridley movie?
Supposedly they're making one with her. I'll watch that if they can at least separate it from the rest.
What's really annoying to me is the fact that I actually do really like Daisy Ridley, and I like John Boyega, and I just wish the two of them would have been in a better set of movies. You know what I mean? Like the idea of the orphan and the stormtrooper who basically, with a conscience. Like there's so much more you could do with that.
Yeah, so supposedly, this is an article from April of this year where they said Daisy Ridley's new Star Wars movie will find the Jedi in disarray 15 years after Rise of Skywalker. So why
are they always in disarray? Can't anyone get their shit together? Why can't she just have like a nice shop somewhere and just be living her life, doing her thing, and then she's like, oh, you know what? I got some Jedi shit to do. Woohoo!
Well, she's trying apparently to rebuild the Jedi Order again, and
she's hitting the bottle. She's really depressed.
Well,
relationships
like I said,
on the rocks.
If it sounds like an interesting movie, I'll happily watch it. I just have no desire to go revisit the sequel trilogy. I just don't think there's anything of value there for me. Yeah. So when somebody says I'd rather watch this than any of those 3 Star Wars movies, I completely and honestly agree. I'd watch this again because at least none of the characters are pissing me off and seem like a waste.
Sure. Well, there's not enough to them really at that point. You know what I mean?
No, they're just all archetypes. They're just all archetypes. If that bothers you, stay away from this. But if you like Zack Snyder's stuff before, whether you think he is a good storyteller, he's not, or not.
Just ignore his DC work. If you liked his stuff before DC, then you know what? This is that. This is old Snyder stuff.
But you and I have both said, even his DC stuff has visual appeal. So if you like his stuff,
there are moments in the JLA movie that are beautiful to look at.
Yeah. Yes. So if you like that, if you like his previous material, I have no reason to think you wouldn't enjoy this. If you've hated all of his previous movies and found them derivative and overuse of slow-mo and a muted color palette, don't bother. It's another Zack Snyder film. So, I don't know what to tell you. That's the easiest way to either recommend or not recommend this movie. If you liked this stuff before, you'll like this. If not, then you won't. And that's kind of the review, is if you've liked Zack Snyder before, you'll probably like this. But as far as if you've read anything that said this is the beginning of some kind of new IP, no, it's not. No, it's not. It's just Star Wars with a new coat of paint. So
in that respect, yes, they have many movies they can make. They can make the fun Rewakens. They can make the last Jawa. I don't know. I mean, they can. Scott Snyder could basically not Scott Snyder. Sorry, Zack Snyder. Scott Snyder was the Batman guy. Zack Snyder could remake every Batman. Yeah, fuck. I got the name screwed up, and Batman came into it. Zack Snyder could remake every Star Wars movie as a Zack Snyder movie.
But here's another thing too, and this will kind of be my final kind of comment on this movie anyway, because I'll watch part 2 when it comes out. It's easy to forget that there are lots of people now who are never going to watch the original Star Wars movies, have no interest in them. They're too old for them. And so for those people, like your kids. Now, your kids, I don't mean your kids, I mean children who have no
we
interest.
are living in the age, and everyone lives in an age like this. There's always a period of time where the movies you grew up in are now old enough that people aren't going to watch them because they don't look as good as the new movies. And so the new movies, they are considered classics, but they don't get watched. My kids were not impressed with the original trilogy.
Yeah, well, so there again,
but
that's
they enjoyed the prequels.
Well, this is what I'm getting to with this movie is I easily could see younger viewers, and this is not saying there's anything wrong with this. I'm saying this is just what it is.
It is the movement of time.
It's the way time works. I would not be shocked by younger viewers who say, yeah, I read that it copied Star Wars, but I've never seen that. I'm not going to watch it. I liked this a lot. I thought the story was good. Okay. Because you don't know what it's ripping off. So in that vein, sure. And that's what I mean is for people like us, the visuals alone, I was entertained. But for certain audiences, this may seem like a new story because they're not familiar with it. So I would not let the critical reviews dissuade anybody from watching this. And again, if you like Snyder stuff before, you will probably like this. So I would say, especially, If you have Netflix, it don't cost you nothing but Netflix, so why not? I wouldn't go to a theater to pay for it necessarily, but
I would watch this in a theater. I would. I think it would look really good on a big screen.
Listen, all I'm saying though is you don't have to.
You don't have to. No.
And
But if you can,
fine.
Listen, if you can see this in a big screen, like if someone's doing like a late night viewing, definitely go see it. It'll look good on a big screen.
It'll look good.
Yeah, because there are enough really cool shots. There's one moment in this movie. There's one moment where I thought something got lazy, and then I was completely wrong. Remember that scene where they're landing on that one planet, and as they're coming down, all you see these like thin towers going straight up.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, well, that's really boring design. Look at those. They're just like featureless columns. And then as you get to the bottom, you realize they're all like these crumbling, floating buildings.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that does look pretty cool.
Yeah. Now the visuals are great. So, well, we're almost at 2 hours. The show hasn't cracked, so we might as well get out of here while we're ahead. So hopefully everybody has a wonderful holiday. Have a wonderful New Year, because it's our last show of the year. And yeah, that's it. So Rebel Moon, worth watching. Masterpiss. Masterpiece in Disarray. Excellent book if you're at all into Dune. And then the Batman books. You
know what? Listen, they much like Rebel Moon, they're not going to stay with you. They're not going to stay with you, but they're fun to read.
But Echolands might be a better investment of your time.
Oh, Echolands is beautiful.
Yeah. So on that note, thank you for being with us in 2023. We will, assuming no natural disasters or planet-cracking events come along, we will see you next year. Until then, enjoy your weekend and your holidays and your New Year, and we'll talk to you on the next show. Visit OzoneNightmare.com to subscribe to new episodes, browse through our back catalog, or to find links to support the show. Follow @OzoneNightmare on Twitter for the latest episode postings and other show information. If 280 characters just isn't enough, you can always email us, theozonenightmare@gmail.com. The opening theme for the show is provided by Heartbeat Hero. The closing theme is provided by Ogre. Please visit and support these artists using the links in the show notes for each episode.